Welcome to How to Find More Direct Clients Than You Can Poke a Stick At podcast, a mix of both solo episodes and expert interviews. Our ideal listener is an early career, ambitious, and passionate online language services provider. She is committed to professional growth and achieving success in the fiercely competitive translation and interpreting industry. She balances multiple responsibilities with resourcefulness, values mentorship, is open to learning, and investing in her professional development journey. She embraces technology and seeks to optimize workflow, eager to connect with like-minded peers and build out her professional network. She is determined to overcome challenges and become a sought-after freelance translator. And here's your host, medical translator and translator business mentor, Jason Willis-Lee.
And welcome to another episode of How to Find More Direct Clients, a podcast hosted by myself, Jason Willis-Lee. This is the show that makes digital marketing easier and more fun using the perfect combo and just the right dose of business strategy and tech. I'm your host, Jason Willis-Lee, digital marketing specialist. And today I am so thrilled to welcome Trudy Rankin, a highly experienced content marketer. Trudy brings a unique perspective to our discussion. Trudy, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Well, thanks for having me on the show, Jason. I'm doing really well.
Thank you so much for accepting my invite. Just as an icebreaker, can you tell my audience a little about your personal and your business journey in content marketing, client lead generation, and your unique vision for the future of this industry?
Sure. It's a little bit convoluted. I'm one of those people who sort of, their career looks like a snakes and ladders type game set. I started out long time ago when my children were young, actually doing paid writing and actually doing like transcription. I used to transcribe market interviews, market surveys, as well as legal transcripts, which were kind of interesting. And then when my children were older, I actually moved into corporate life, became a chief information officer and did that as well as project management. And then I had always wanted to start my own business at some stage in my life. I had known from a very young age that I someday wanted to start my own business. And back in 2015, I had the perfect opportunity to make the decision about whether or not I wanted to stick with the current career that I had or move into this new space that I truly didn't know very much about. And I decided to take the chance because I knew if I didn't do it then, I never would. So I jumped into the world of entrepreneurship, of small business ownership, online business, and it sort of worked my way through the learning process that I had to do in order to become a successful small business owner. And as part of that journey, I ended up, just through a long story short, I won't get into the detail, but I ended up having a young intern who is partially sighted, so very almost blind, and had been wanting to be able to get a job since the time they were in high school, weren't able to do that, and as a result, they had started writing as a way of just having something to do because they were just bored, because they not only went through high school, couldn't get a job, they went through university, couldn't get a job, did a master's and couldn't get a job. And it's just like, what do you do? How do you help somebody like that? So I ended up with them through a series of fortunate events, having them as an intern. And then I discovered that they had this blog post or blog that they'd been writing for a number of years. And I asked, his name's Shahan, I said, Shahan, how are you monetizing this? How are you making money out of this? And he looked at me and said, I didn't know you could do that. And so we spent the next 3 months helping him figure out how to monetize his blog, how to make money from his blog. Mm-hmm. It's kind of snowballed from there. I ended up running a course for a business called, it's a not-for-profit called Vision Australia, which is where I had found Shahan as an intern, for people who are blind or partially sighted, helping them start an online business. And then over time, as I kind of learned the ropes and helped other people how to figure out how to do it, sort of started to move into the whole world of lead generation using quizzes, helping people achieve the goals that they wanted to achieve through basically creating content that's useful, helpful, people are interested in, creates curiosity. And so that was a long answer to your question, but it's been, as I said, a bit of a convoluted path to the where I am today, where I basically do a lot of working with people around that whole side of things.
Could you dive a little deeper into the blog monetization? 'Cause I'm guessing a lot of my listeners have revolving content on their websites. I do myself. How do you monetize a blog? Is it advertising revenue? Is it anything else?
It's interesting, and it's one of those topics where the more you learn about it, the more there is to learn about it. There's several different ways of monetizing blog content, and depending on the topics that you write about and the things that you write about. The first and most obvious way is by you know having ads on your website. So you can use Google AdSense is one way. Usually that's what people use when they're just getting started, or if their traffic volumes are fairly low. And then there's other platforms like Ezoic or Mediavine or Raptor. And you have to have more traffic coming into your site, but you also get paid more for the traffic that comes in.
Mhm.
And I have a number of content websites that I'm experimenting with all the time, building, growing. One of them I bought, you know, the others that I started. And I use Google AdSense, and they just recently instituted a new type of advertisement on their website that are it's kind of like a search ad almost
Yep.
on your website, and it actually is fairly effective in terms of it looks decent. People can click on it. It doesn't take them away from your website, and it's kind of nice. So that's one way. So that's ads. You can also sell sponsorships. You can get people. You can actually say, hey, you know, if you give me so much money, I'll put a little permanent ad advertising your business or your service or your product on my blog post, on my particular blog post. You can use that. You can do it permanently, or you can do it through pop-up ads. I've got there's a tool called ConvertBox that I use that you can use to, and there's others as well. I just use ConvertBox. If you're a WordPress website, you can easily get plugins that'll do pop-up ads for you. But you can just create these nice little ads that they're there. If people aren't interested, they click and they go away. And instead of you know, doing it through Google AdSense, you just do it by arrangement with the crowds that you are working with in terms of a sponsorship, and then it's there. Now, just to be really clear, with the pop-up ad stuff, you can do it that way, but it's probably works better if you're using what I would call an affiliate type of an arrangement or agreement, where you're working with that particular product, and they say basically, hey, if you can get people to click on this link and they go to our website and they buy, we'll give you a commission. And so in terms of the amount of money that you can get in terms of monetization, affiliates are probably the best way of monetizing your content. So it's there's a mix. You can do mix and match. There's another way of doing it that I have seen. I haven't tried it myself, but I have talked to other people who have done it successfully. And there's that whole concept of buy me a coffee. So you can kind of like you can basically say, hey, contribute whatever you think this is worth or whatever you can afford, and then people will contribute. There's just all different kinds of doing it. You can actually also, you know, use tools like Patreon and say, hey, if you'll sponsor me on Patreon via this platform Patreon for X amount of money per month, I will give you early access to my blog content, or I'll throw in a video, or maybe I'll throw in access to a podcast that nobody else can get access to, all sorts of things. So you can even use Patreon for, you know, they usually use it with videos, but you can actually use it for your blog content as well.
I'm interested in ConvertBox because I'm just about to launch a 97 euro masterclass, as I think I told you. That's for my beginners, just to get them on the way, move them forwards faster. So I'll probably use ConvertBox to do a pop-up for that event. Let's turn to quiz marketing, because that's your specialism. It's kind of how we met. The quiz on my website, the signature quiz, was designed by Trudy. Trudy Rankin's work is that quiz. So that's what you do. That is a lead magnet on my site. It's on the banner. If you haven't done the quiz, please go to the quiz. You'll find it on entrepreneurialtranslator.com, just on the banner. And that was Trudy's work. Could you outline, Trudy, how quiz marketing can help service providers attract clients? And is it a way of filtering out the leads and just getting those warm leads and finding out more about the audience? How does the quiz actually help? And specifically, how can freelance translators do a quiz? I mean, you did one for me, so you're familiar with my industry. How can service providers, let's say we've got a legal translator listening who works from German to English, how can she use a quiz to attract client leads?
Okay, so it does depend a little bit on the type of business that you have.
Yeah.
In order to be able to use a quiz effectively. So a quiz, if you think about a quiz, we're not talking about the kind of quiz where, you have to know the answers to a bunch of stuff and you get a grade at the end of it. A quiz is really intended to do several things, and it's meant to benefit both the people taking the quiz and the person who's providing the quiz on their website. So for the person taking the quiz, it is intended to help them take a step forward in their journey from A to B and do it in a way that's going to help them create momentum, destroy barriers, dispel myths, and just in general help them speed up the pace in which they're trying to get something achieved. And it's a really, really effective way of doing that. So the benefit to them is they get to learn something that they didn't know necessarily about themselves or their business. It helps to create momentum for them. And then for the person who's providing the quiz, it does a bunch of stuff, a lot of things. First of all, it can help attract, as you said, attract the right type of clients.
Yeah.
It helps to repel the wrong kind of clients.
Right.
It also helps to segment the clients that come in that might be right for what you have to offer, but some of those people aren't ready for you yet. Some of them are maybe a little bit more advanced than maybe what you're offering right now. And so you need that ability to distinguish between those and to offer them what they need right now, not just necessarily what you have. And so one of the really, really important ways that I use quizzes and I help my clients use quizzes is to start off with something that's not really, really a quiz. It's actually a kind of a survey, but it's the kind of survey that people are willing to take. It's not that kind where they go, I'm not answering those questions. But basically, you get them to tell you information about what they're struggling with, what their challenges are with regard to a very specific step that they're trying to take. And you can take that data and you use it to decide what kind of products to provide, what kind of services to provide, what kind of language to use in your marketing copy, on your landing pages, on your website, in your emails. So it helps a lot with the marketing side of things. And then one of the other things that not that many people know about is that it actually helps you address objections before people really even realize they had those objections. It helps with that whole reducing friction of taking people from a cold lead. So they come in cold, they do the quiz, they come out the other end of the quiz a warm lead. And that's a really, really, really helpful thing, especially if you're struggling to market your services in a way that resonates with people.
What is one myth that you can bust when it comes to quiz marketing? And then could you confirm to my audience the quizzes are also for service providers? It's not just for solopreneurs. It's also for a group of freelance translators who can leverage a quiz.
Yeah, so one of the myths is that quizzes are all about what kind of Disney princess are you? That quizzes are fluff and they're silly, and yeah, they might be fun, but they're not useful to you as a business. That is a myth. They bring so much value in terms of the data that you can gather about what people are doing, how they're answering your questions, gives you a sense of where they're at, and it also helps you in optimizing your own sales funnel. And it also helps, and I just love the fact that it actually helps the person taking the quiz as well, because a quiz, if it's put together well, number one, it induces curiosity.
Yeah.
Number two, it teaches them something that they need to know. Number three, it gets them started thinking about the things they need to think about just because they've read your question in the quiz. And then you can give them it makes it really easy to set up like an email automation, like an email nurture sequence afterwards, where you continue to address their problems and challenges in a way that makes them believe that you know what you're talking about and that you can actually help them. So you can use quizzes in varying shapes and forms for just about any business, but you do have to be very aware of the type of business it is and the type of customer that you have. So for example, I'll just give you a really quick example, and it's not quite your particular audience, but it gives you an example. I recently spoke to somebody who has an audience. They run an agency that creates online presence for people who we would call tradies here in Australia. They're tradespeople, and they are very busy people. They're out there working on the job. They don't have time to mess around with quizzes. They don't have time to build websites. They don't have time to market. So they're not my clients. Those would not be my ideal clients. However, the people who are running the agencies who are helping them build their online presence are interested in quizzes for those people, but they're the intermediary between them, if that makes any sense.
Sure, it does. Let's turn on to content marketing. I'm interested in how the quiz fits into an overall content marketing strategy. So I know you've helped me with my content marketing and nurturing the audience and on the product side of my business. Those are the kind of things we talk about on our calls. Trudy is one of my mentors, obviously. She's extremely knowledgeable, and it's great to get the benefit of her knowledge. How can an audience of freelance translators intentionally leverage a quiz together with a content marketing strategy to generate leads? Because I'm always talking about lead generation, and it's all about the leads. And how are you going to get sales if you don't have leads? Everything comes downstream of lead generation, right? How can the quiz be sort of married to a content strategy of posting on LinkedIn, maybe on Instagram? Usually LinkedIn. I tend to stick to LinkedIn because that's where my audience is. How do you do this yourself in your own business, and how can service providers do this themselves?
I think I'm gonna sort of step back to a question that you sort of asked before and sort of marry it up with this, and that is how can translators use this concept of a quiz to help with lead generation? And it's like I said, it does depend a little bit on where you are in your business journey.
Yeah.
But for translators who are at the point where they have got people coming to them on their website or via social media and being interested in looking at their services, those people have got a problem that they have, and they need somebody to help them solve it. And so they will be interested in looking for somebody who can help them do that. And having a quiz that is specifically about that particular problem that they have, that helps to diagnose the problem so that you as the translator can help them solve that problem, is actually going to make for a quiz that people are willing to do. So then if we bring it back to the content strategies side of things, your content strategy is there for a reason. Your content strategy is there to help bring people to your website so that they can see what you do, believe that you can help them, and then obviously get in contact. And so there's so many different ways you can do that. You can typically, part of that in content strategy is also to get people onto your email list. Well, you use lead magnets or things that you give away for free in exchange for somebody's email address and name. And a quiz is one of the most effective lead magnets that I know of. And that's because when you think about the types of lead magnets that you can create, there's lots of different kinds you can create. The trouble is that the chance that you're going to create a lead magnet that's going to fit the needs of just about everybody who comes to your website is very, very small. It's vanishingly small. You'll get a few people that it'll suit, and it won't suit the rest of them. However, with a quiz, you can actually take a big net and put people into and through the quiz and serve them by putting them through the quiz. Like I said, helping them, helping you. And so your content strategy then becomes, how can I get people to come to my website and take my quiz? Because by taking the quiz, before they get their results, you get them to give you their name and email address. So they're there as a lead and then you're immediately serving them straight away without having to have any interaction with them at that particular stage. You might still have a, hey, call me, type of a lead of a call to action, but at that stage, you're still giving them information they need. So how can you get people to your quiz? You use the typical things. You use your social media. You use your blog content. You go and talk on somebody's podcast. You can use ads if you're at that stage in your business journey. Not everybody is, and I don't recommend it for everybody. There's lots of other ways of actually getting traffic without having to pay for ads, but it does suit some businesses, some business models to do it that way. So does that answer your question?
I think so. I think, I think a quiz is we've got some great leads coming through our quiz. I probably need to do a nurture email sequence to back it up for people who do the quiz. But certainly if you haven't taken our quiz and you're interested in what Trudy and I are talking about, please look at the quiz on my website. It is on the banner, as I said. Let's talk about niche, because niche is obviously very important as well. It comes very high up in my book that I recently published, Niche Your Way to the Top. I have a free chapter that I give out as a sort of taster of that book. How important is niching down for service providers, specifically for freelance translators and interpreters? How important is it?
I think it's pretty important, and not just pretty important, it's really important. However, I'll just caveat that with saying that when you're first starting out, when you're just getting started, sometimes you have to try a whole bunch of different types of things, niches, be a bit of a generalist until you figure out A, what you enjoy, B, what the market is, and C, who you can actually help right now. But as you start to develop that sense of who you can help, what you enjoy, then by niching down is one of the things that took me the longest time to learn. But once I learned it, it just sunk in so deep. Once you're super clear about who you're helping and how you're helping them, it makes it so much easier to do all of your marketing. All of your marketing messages then become so much simpler to create. They're clear, they're crisp, and they will end up attracting the right people. Whereas marketing, a lot of people, I know so many small business owners of all kinds who find it the hardest thing is to actually get clear on their marketing messages. And it's because they're not really sure who they're serving. So I'll just give you a really quick example just from my experience. And you were asking me about, using quizzes in my own business. Just before COVID and during COVID, I was running a program through some funding that the Australian federal government provided to help people who are carers or caregivers they're looking after somebody in their life or in their family who's either severely disabled, severely ill, or severely injured. And they, those people need help. The person who's caring for them, because of the help they have to give, they can't go work. It's really difficult to find part-time jobs that fit into their schedule. And so we basically helped those people, plus people who are over the age of 50 who are at risk of long-term unemployment because of ageism or whatever, or they can't find a job. We worked with them to help them learn how to start an online business. And so we niched down by focusing on those two groups of people. And then within those two groups of people, we then realized we needed to niche down even further. So we ended up focusing with the carers. We realized that for carers with small children, it's not the appropriate program for them, simply because they just do not have the time or headspace to focus on something like an online business when their whole world is taken up with visits to the hospital, the doctor trying to get things diagnosed, treatments. It just doesn't work for them. So we had to niche down. But we found that out by working with a wider net, talking to people and using quizzes to slowly, narrow down who it was we were working with. And we used a combination of a quiz and ads, basically, because the federal government was funding this, we were able to say, hey, if you are accepted into this program, it's not going to cost you anything. You can do it for free. And at first we had people say, hey, we thought you were a scam. We were not a scam. We were genuine. We helped well over 100 people through this program. It was just a really exciting thing to be part of.
Yeah.
But the reality was that the quiz plus the ads was so successful that we ended up having to turn off our ads well before we had planned to, because we filled up the whole program and we had a wait list. We filled up the wait list and we just didn't have any more space. So we had to turn it off. So that's an example of how effective a quiz can be at helping to segment the people who are ready for you right now, the people who aren't eligible or who would never benefit from working with you, and the people who are just kicking tires. They're just looky-looing. They're just they just want information. And
Yeah.
we're happy to give them information, but we did it in an automated way and it didn't take up the time of our team.
What are some of the challenges in designing a quiz? I mean, I'm just thinking a lot of our listeners, this may be a new concept. They've never heard of a quiz for lead generation. What kind of ideas would you advise? I mean, I'm thinking a quiz that would highlight human translators as superior to machines, and AI is one thing. Have you used AI? Have you been satisfied with the results? Have you received client complaints? That kind of thing. What kind of challenges do you see or envisage with quiz design, and how can you help? How can that help my audience of freelance translators?
The biggest challenge for anyone who's putting together a quiz or wants to use a quiz as a lead magnet
Yeah.
is understanding their audience enough so that they understand the challenges, the problems that their clients or potential clients are facing. Now, when I say they need to understand it enough, with quizzes, with the process that I use, and as I said before, I start out with a little miniature survey, and we take the results from that survey, and it answers the questions around, well, what are you really challenged by? And you and I went through this process. What are the things that translators are really challenged by? Well, we know what those are now. How do people talk about them? We know what those are now. And then you take that information and then you build out a quiz that helps to, one, spark curiosity on the part of the person who's taking it, but also a recognition. As soon as they see the title, they should be going, oh, that's something I need to know because it's something that I need in my business and I still haven't figured out how to get it. Maybe these people can help me. So they'll go in and answer the questions and then get the information, and it's really, really helpful. So the biggest challenge is finding the problem or knowing enough about the problem so that you can at least get started. Then taking that, doing something small, building on that, and then picking the right topic that is for the quiz. And there's different types of quizzes you can have as well. So there's different ways of approaching how you shape the quiz and how you shape the questions so that it fits your audience. And so getting those things right can be a little tricky. And sometimes it takes a little bit of optimizing and just trying things out. But if you have enough of an understanding to know what the problem and challenge is, then it helps a lot in shaping your final quiz so that by the time people have found out about your quiz, they're interested in doing it and they believe it's going to help them by doing it.
How much of an impact has AI had, do you think, on the industry of the writing industry, freelance writers? How scared should they be of it? Something I work towards is giving freelance translators other options. So diversifying, copywriting, maybe podcasting, maybe affiliate marketing. I love just conjuring up these ideas of other revenue streams that my audience can. I've done this myself, so I think I have some authority talking about this. How overhyped is AI now, and how is it over talked about? One question I ask all my guests is, how would you describe AI in just one word? And somebody said to me, overhyped. So I think we've had all this conversation, all the scaremongering, and now it's just time to get down to work and roll up our sleeves and do the work. How much of an impact do you see it having now that we're kind of well into this wave of the next wave of AI?
I think that it's definitely obvious that AI has had an impact and will continue to have an impact on translators, simply because you can take something and you can either type it into Google or you can say, hey, translate this into another language for me, and it'll happen. But it's the same thing as it is with writers. It's like rubbish in, rubbish out. If you have something translated,
yeah,
and you're not the person who speaks the language it's been translated into, you still do not know if that's any good or not. And so you still need a human eye, a trained human eye, to go across that and have a look. and see whether that's valid, has been translated correctly. You don't have some sort of weird meaning coming out of it that was completely unintended. Now, is that always going to be the case? Possibly not. But for right now, there is still definitely a need for translators. But that's where you're taking something that's written and putting it into a translation and trying to do it. Can you imagine trying to do that when you've got screeds and screeds and screeds of text that need to be done? Like if you're translating a book, if you're translating a thesis, if you're translating a white paper where it's so critical that you get all of the nuances right, you can't do that with AI. Right. Not now, not yet. And so I think it's really important to, instead of being terrified of AI, it's more like, hey, this thing has got some things that it's good at. There's some things that it's bad at. In terms of the marketing language, you can talk about the things that it doesn't do so well and that humans do better. But in terms of the things that it does do well at, how can you use those to help you become more efficient as a translator? How can you use it as a way of offering new services as a translator? And I really like what you're saying about how can you help translators come up with new ways of coming up with income? Yeah. And there's so many different ways of doing that. Copywriting is definitely a thing. Being able to write about any kind of topic is a thing. Yeah. And also because one of the things that I do, I have content-based websites that I work on that are part of my portfolio of things that I do. One of those is called Freelance Writers Online. Yeah. And every week I update, the jobs and things that are there. And every time I do, I ended up having to add a section where people are looking for people who have dual language skills or bilingual or trilingual. And so if you were to go and look at it today, freelancewritersonline.com, and click on the jobs board that's there on the menu, you'll see that there's a whole bunch of ads there for people who need people who are bilingual in a whole variety of languages: Dutch, German, Spanish, Japanese. It's kind of there's quite a variety. They need both editors and writers. So if you're a translator and you only think of yourself as a translator, then I highly recommend that you expand your skill set out, and so that you can start to think about yourself as a writer as well as a translator. Yeah. Because those two skills go together, or an editor and a translator. They all go together. And I think that those skills are really critical, and they're going to hold you in good stead for the next little while AI sort of, gets better and better at what it's doing. But I still think the human component is going to be needed for a very, very long time.
You have a solid reputation as getting work done. You're which I kind of interpret as productivity. You are productive. What is one productivity tool or tip that you can't live without? So I'm going into the final 5 questions here. We ask all our guests these questions. What's a feel-good productivity tip or tool that you use? Because I know you get work done and you hold me accountable to my work, which is amazing. Do you use any productivity tools, or do you have any strategies to pass on?
I'll share a couple with you. One of them is old-fashioned, as it's been around ever since there's been paper and pen. And it's really important that you sit down at the beginning of the year and at the beginning of each quarter, at the beginning of each month, and at the beginning of each week to plan out what you're going to do and what you're going to achieve. And you start with a year, then you break it down into quarters, then you break it down into months, and then you break the month down into weeks. And so at the beginning of every week, I sit down. I could show it to you. It's a mess, but you probably can't even see it. But not really, you can't see it. It's too.
Your screen is a little blurred. Yeah.
It's too blurred. But anyway, what it is, it's basically a planner that I pulled together myself. Based on things that I'd learned, and then pulled it together into my own planner, things to do today. And it's got what are the most important tasks of the one most important task of the day. If you get that done, you can feel really good about your day. The second most important tasks of the day. So there's space for 2 things there, and then there's space for 2 other additional tasks. And then of course there's a space for I ended up having to add an admin section. But then then you've got space to put your meetings. What kind of learning? I always have space to write down what kind of learning I'm going to do for the day, and people contact. And then there's a daily review at the end of the day. What are 3 amazing things that happened today? And what could I do better next time? And that is my everyday, that's my go-to process that I use to be sure that I'm working towards a goal, be sure that I'm staying on track with my goals. I can take that paper with me anywhere, pull it out. Did I do the work? And I use Post-it notes as well in combination with that. But
Right.
the thing that I found the most valuable with that is that, as an entrepreneur, we all have downtimes where we feel bad about what we're doing or the progress we're making. And if I start to get to the space where I'm thinking, oh, what do I think I'm doing? Maybe I should just go get a job. And I still think that even today, and I do have a successful business. And what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll pull out my old planning notes from the beginning of the year, and I'll look and I'll see what have I actually accomplished. And I invariably come out of it going, wow, actually, I have done a lot. And it always makes me feel better. So it is a really good tool to use as a way of staying on track, working toward a goal, and just keeping a healthy mental mindset, basically.
Yeah, I tend to do that on a Sunday evening. It's more mental, or sometimes I'll jot down some notes, but on Sunday evening I will definitely think about what needs to get done in the week ahead. You do that on a Monday morning, or is it a Sunday evening thing? When do you do that yourself?
Yeah, Monday morning. I do the weekly ones on a Monday morning.
Yeah.
All the quarterly planning things get done on a Tuesday because I do it with my community. We'll sit down and we do a workshop where we plan together what it is that we're going to do for that particular quarter. I will mention one other quick thing. It won't apply to everybody simply because not everybody has a podcast or creates videos or creates audio files. But because I have my own podcast, the Online Business Launchpad podcast, I have a tool called Descript that I use that basically you pop the file, the video. So I do it as a video. I pop the file in there. It creates a transcript for me. I can edit the transcript and it immediately edits the video at the same time and the audio.
Yeah.
And then it's got a whole bunch of AI tools built into it that help me clean up what's in there. It helps me do it really fast. And then it'll spit out a transcript. It will spit out the audio file for my podcast. And then it'll spit out the video. And you can also select little chunks of the video and use them in social media and stuff. The AI bit that you could use to do the show notes or to pick out the little snippets that they say could you used in social media, it's not as advanced as it can be. So I don't use that quite as much yet. I'd rather do that by eye with my own, do it myself. But then I just take that transcript and then I go into ChatGPT and I say, hey, here's my transcript. This is my work. This is my valid work.
Yeah.
Please help me do the show notes. Please help me come up with a title. Please help me come up with social media summaries. And then I go in and edit those. But it means I'm not staring at a blank screen. And it's sped up my time to create all those things and create repurposed content from my podcast. It saved me hours and hours, probably at least 10 to 12 hours a week.
Heidi, my VA, uses a tool called Headliner to do the snippets. So these are just visual audio snippets. If you've seen me on LinkedIn, that's what we usually put as the media file that goes with the show notes. And I use a tool, Trudy mentioned Descript. I use a tool called Otter.ai, and that's another similar tool. It just transcripts. I don't provide full transcripts for my episodes. That's something I would like to do moving forwards. Because I think you can get some interesting leverage from keywords and things if you do that and have a space on your website for that. What is the best business advice you've ever received or maybe given a mentee or a student of yours? What's the best business advice you've ever received yourself from your mentors or given to someone else as a mentor?
It has to be don't give up. Basically, when we were running the program,
you've said that to me several times, actually.
Well, we used to have a saying with the program, the Online Business Liftoff program that we ran with the Australian federal government, because we were working with people who hadn't, because of their situation, hadn't worked for years, potentially. And oftentimes they might even have health issues themselves. And they were coming at this from a perspective of somebody who, they were not net comfortable with the technology. They'd never run a business themselves, and they weren't sure that they could do it. And it's just like, hey, when you're learning something and you're learning something new and you're learning new skills, you can't give up. You are not a failure unless you give up.
Yeah.
So we had a saying that was fall down 7 times, get up 8. That is what a winner does.
That's a great saying. That's yeah, I think not giving up it is tempting when you're not seeing the success you want. But if any of you are in that mindset, it's just a question of that's a great saying. Fall down 7 times, get up 8. I love that. So just a couple more questions. I mean, what's the biggest myth you think exists when it comes to online business? Because we're all online business owners. We're either service providers and product owners like myself. I've gone a bit hybrid the last couple of years. You have more of a productized service business, the content websites. I love that aspect of your business, especially the freelance writer's website. We'll get a link to that, of course, in the show notes. Any myths to do with online business, and then we'll go into the closing remarks.
The absolute number one myth that just makes me want to throw up, basically, is that it's easy. You see this bro marketing stuff where they go, I made this much money in this much time, and you can do it too. Follow my lead.
Yeah.
It's rubbish. Everybody has a different situation. They serve different people. They have different skill sets. There is no such thing as easy, fast success in online business. You have to do the work.
Yeah.
You have to do the learning, and you have to, this is one of the biggest things that I learned myself, and I had to help other people learn. You have to make the mindset change from being an employee, if you've been an employee, to being a business owner. Being a business owner requires a completely different mindset.
Yeah.
To somebody who's just an employee, who has a job, who has a boss who tells them what to do, and they've got a team around them to support them. When you're an online business owner, it's a different ball game, and you have to do the hard yards. There's no getting around it.
Trudy, where can my listeners connect with you or learn more about your work and expertise? What's the best platform? Is it LinkedIn, or should they go to your website?
So they can go to the best place to go is LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'm Trudy Rankin, TrudyRankin, just there on LinkedIn. You can do a search for me. And if you want to reach out and connect with me, I'd love it if you did that. If you do, make sure you say that you heard me on this podcast, because I get a lot of requests for connection from people who are just only interested in selling me stuff, and I tend to kind of go ignore. So
Right.
if you just say, hey, I heard you on the podcast, I'd love to connect with you. That'd be really great. Or you can go to what is my main website, which is onlinebusinessliftoff.com. You can send me a message through that, and then I'd be delighted to get back to you. And if you have questions, happy to answer questions.
Make sure you tell Trudy you heard her on Jason's How to Find More Direct Clients podcast. Trudy, any final thoughts or key takeaways for my audience? This has been an amazing episode. Any final thoughts maybe on quiz marketing? People are thinking about a quiz. They're thinking, well, that sounds interesting. Get a magnet on my website for a quiz. Any final takeaways on that, or anything else?
Well, I'm gonna just sort of step aside from the quiz just for a sec, side of things, and just say,
Sure.
What people wouldn't know about me is that I have family that kind of lives across the globe, and which means that it's necessary to be able to move around in countries that have other languages, right? And to be able to understand other languages. And what I really wanted to say is that if you're a translator and you're doubting, your role in the world, please do not doubt the fact that translators are so important and so necessary, even more so in today's world where there's so much fake stuff going on. We need people who can do really good work, who can translate the nuances, who can get the meaning across in the context that's required. And my hat's off to people who can speak more than one language. I've spent, since my college years been working on learning to speak German, and I can understand more than I speak. I'm not totally fluent. I understand a little bit, but you should be proud of the fact that you can speak more than one language. And if you can use that language capability to help other people, that's fantastic. That's wonderful. I think that's amazing. So good on you.
All right, let's wrap it up for today's episode of How to Find More Direct Clients. Stay tuned for more engaging discussions on the ever-evolving landscape of language and digital marketing. Until next time, remember, as I always say, stay on your game, and don't forget to future-proof your career in the AI digital era. Bye from me, your host, Jason Willisley, and big thank you again to my special guest, Trudy Rankin.
Here's a fun fact about Jason. Jason was born in Aberdeen, Scotland in the UK. Thanks for tuning in to the How to Find More Direct Clients Than You Can Poke a Stick At podcast. We'll be back soon. In the meantime, why not head over to www.entrepreneurialtranslator.com to access all our tools and resources to monetize and future-proof your freelance translation business. And don't forget to hit the plus button in Apple Podcasts or iTunes, or subscribe in Spotify to be notified when new episodes drop. For regular tips and insights, business strategy, or marketing techniques straight to your inbox, please sign up at www.entrepreneurialtranslator.com.